Hello, my friends, and happy National Video Game Day. My name is Bullskunk alongside Mana Class, and we are here in day 3 of NA Contenders Trials. We have two powerhouses going at it here today, two teams that have not dropped a map. As Cratos will take on Malibu to see who will continue their undefeated streak. But before we start talking about those teams, let's take a look at the standings here in Group B, Classy.
Yeah, of course, Group B has been progressing quite nicely. Like you said, Kratos, Malibu, both undefeated, haven't dropped a map, so this will be the decider who gets that first place after the first 3 days. We've had some other games going on the last 2 days. Of course, Square One, Uprising Academy, Noble, and Sky Foxes are also in this group. And yeah, behind those first two seats, it's getting quite close between the four. So Square One and Uprising Academy are both at the 1-1, just a map differential, keeping those two apart. And Noble and Skyfox is leading down the bottom, or dropping down to the bottom, both with two 0-2 losses. So they'll both be sharing that fifth spot. And they won't have to play each other for a while, actually, until the last day. So both of them still have two other opponents to face to maybe make the difference between the two of them. And that's where we're at with Group B, really. It's just 6 teams organized in that fashion that we just described. So now going into this actual match, Kratos versus Malibu, we've just lined down the stakes. It's going to be really decisive here. Who's going to get that top seed? Who's going to keep undefeated? But I think we're both expecting them to kind of have at least to drop one map.
Most likely. I mean, these teams have both looked so strong coming in. I mean, after today, whoever takes this W, I mean, all but guaranteed a slot at Contenders, as both of these newer rosters are looking to fight it out for fame, fortune, and all the poggers in chat. Try to make into that Contender slot. I'm excited. This is going to be a heck of a match. We've got Maxwell on one side, who has just looked like an amazing Genji so far. I mean, just summoning the spirit of Hacksaw every step of the way. But then from
100%.
Malibu, you've got the 14-year-old prodigy and wannabe, and Buck, who's been picking up the Genji role for that team, putting up a very strong showing so far is in his own right.
Yeah, 100%. And it's just been very hard to really find a distinction between these teams and saying like, oh, this is probably going to go in their favor or their favor. I know, for instance, that Malibu is very comfortable on dive, but they don't shy away from saying it's not working. Just go back to the meta comp, play the Genji, play the Ashe, play the double barrier with Brigitte Baptiste, and we'll be fine. Maybe throw Zenyatta in the mix here and there, but they're fairly comfortable on that. So yeah, going back to Kratos, obviously they can also, like I said, they can play the Genji, but they're also able to switch over to that dive. Both teams have some players from other regions to back up their roster that have previously played. For instance, Rocket, very popular player in EU before. Harui coming over from the Chinese region, and the same thing can be said for Malibu as well to a degree. So it's all to play for here between these teams. And earlier today, when we saw two group leaders going on up against each other only 2 hours ago in EMEA, that led to a map 4 series, a draw on hybrid, and then they just went to 2-1. And going into Oasis here, first map, I'm very excited to see these teams because we can expect almost a very similar situation where we might see 2-1, maybe a 2-1 with a draw, so we go to map 4, maybe even a map 5, they draw out on 2 of the maps. So yeah, a lot of exciting things to look forward to here, and we can already see the rosters come out here. Control, Oasis, on University. It's looking like it's not going to be a mirror.
Not so far. We're 7 seconds away from getting this match started. King Kratos, the divine representation of strength, show us a godlike performance here today. Keep their undefeated streak. Well, we're about to find out. This match has begun, Classic.
It most certainly has. Buck coming out on that Genji, obviously, like we were expecting. Maxwell as well, but the tank line and the support are completely different here, so they're rotating in different spaces as well. They want to fight from high ground and low ground, respectively.
Yeah, Kratos opting for that high ground route, getting default up on those off angles they so like to take. See if they can find an early pick. Looks like Malibu, they're just taking a very safe approach, standing underneath this cover. Okay, there goes Buck trying to get aggressive while Malibu rotates down. Kratos getting into the things, trying to get some point possession here, but it's going to be Cedro finding first blood. Make that 2 as a matter of fact. And are you going down? That's a very important pick. I don't think Kratos is going to have the sustain to stick around in this fight.
It's very hard for them to stick on that high ground and still get the value. You do see that certain, especially DPS, want to take more of that off angle, Sigma as well, and somehow then they get caught out by Cedro on that Reinhardt. They just kept on swinging, using their fire strikes, and just waited for people like Fishcake and Odd to force people into their AOE.
That's what one thing we've seen from Malibu recently. I mean, they are not afraid to pick up these brawl comps, bring in the newly buffed D.Va into the mix here, who now has a self-destruct online. All right, so you just get back and Meg, and here comes Buck's Blade, starts things off. The first Genji Blade of the match is going to take Default down. Follows up with a nice kill on the Gunther as well. Cedro getting into the mix, and that's a switch. 4 kills here from Malibu.
Heads up play to go on the aggressive there. You don't want that Orisa Sigma composition to set up. So they go in with the ultimates that they have, or at least that they want to have, which is Coalescence and that Blade. And they're a very explosive duo, especially because with a Coalescence you can aid in getting that Immortality field out of the way, so Buck can do all the work they want.
But Cratos coming back in with a plethora of ults, including both support ults all ready to go, and Maxwell has his own Genji Blade online. Rally to start things off, and a Gravitic Flux to initiate the fight. That's going to prompt the sound barrier from Fishcake. Buck diving in and fighting a kill, but Maxwell responds. The Baptiste getting in the mix there for Cratos as well. And this is going to be a very nice retake as Cratos answers with a nice strike there.
Yeah, they finally are able to get on top of things and use the ultimates that they have been building for a while. And the problem that Malibu is going to have is that they invested quite a bit. They will stall out a bit more percentage, but they have a while. So they're putting this stall on not because they think that, oh, they still fight is still winnable. They're putting the stall on because they think, okay, but this means we'll only have to win 1 more fight after this, maybe 1.5, and we can just save ultimates for that. Meanwhile, you have Cratos on the other side that have to save ultimates and keep rotating them correctly in order to get it to the 100% of their own. So they're in a more precarious situations and have to be more careful about how they use these ultimates.
And speaking of ultimates, both teams pretty even here. We're going to have wannabe with that Death Blossom. Here comes a Maxwell's Blade. He dives into the back. Default finding first blood. The self-destruct there, trying to zone Maxwell out, but he is not deterred. He goes in and slices and dices, takes wannabe out of the fight. The Coalescence, I don't think it's going to be enough to keep Malibu in this fight. The percentage still ticking up here for Cratos.
Yeah, it doesn't look like that was ever going to be a fight that Malibu was going to win.
No.
Like I pointed out before, you can see that while they don't have the support ultimates, they have 2 DPS ultimates and the Reinhardt ultimate from Cedro here. That beautiful Shatter is going to be ready. And there's also 3 ultimates online for the other side here, Cratos. And now with the Implication Matrix, more's going to get invested.
Jimmy Buck's Blade to start things off. Sigma trying to see if they can... Oh, does get blocked with a huge Gravitic Flux. Finds Cedro as a bonus prize in that. Wannabe not able to pull the Death Blossom out. And Cratos... Oh, no. Oh, no. The baby D.Va just wants to play the game.
Video game day. Oh, you're supposed to have fun playing games, not be mean. Don't why you have to bully? You know, it's not what we're about. But now there will not be that many ultimates anymore for Cratos. They just used about everything they had. It's going to be a rally, maybe a blade. And meanwhile, they've been sitting on those DPS ultimates and that Shatter for a while now on the side of Malibu. So they're going to be happy coming in here.
Oh, and the Shatter finds nothing. Blocked, stunned, deleted, but Wannabe's Death Blossom. Tornado warnings on Oasis. Does pick up 1, whittles down the rest of the pack. Makes for easy picking as Fishcake and ODD come in and clean up. Not a moment too soon. Overtime wicks are burned, and we're going to get one last fight here, Classy.
84%. This doesn't mean they will have an opportunity to come back here when they're Cratos. Cratos is going to come back with the Wrecking Balls off from Krawi, make sure that they can actually make it there, but Default already down an early pick. That's not what you wanted to see.
A disastrous start, but we've seen Maxwell pull these back before, and the blade comes out, he slices through Wannabe, dashes through Fishcake, and just immediately gives Cratos the edge in this fight. It's going to be 5v4 favoring that team. And now it's 99-99. Self-destruct out to try to buy some space. That finds nothing. Supercharger coming out from Rocket, and that's going to allow Cratos to find 2 more picks. And the Reinhardt, Buck trying to drop his blade, but it is not going to be enough. Now Wannabe coming back on the Doomfist. The 14-year-old not quite able to get it done here on this map. Cratos opening up strong. 1-0 on Oasis.
It's such a shame that Fishcake is one of those 2 that goes down early there. So close to the barrier, would have likely gone it off there. and that would have meant that there's so much more sustain on the side of Malibu there. So this time around, they cannot come on top of that, but their resource management was looking really good. For a long time, I really felt that Kratos was going to be in trouble because they had to keep using ultimates, and Malibu didn't quite reciprocate. And of course, they had to only win one fight. Unfortunately, the percentage was a little bit too low. That 83%, not quite the same as something like 87, 89, especially when you're in a more mobile, divey composition. It's sometimes hard to deny that overtime touch.
Speaking of divey compositions, Malibu coming out of the gate with the Winston Diva. Tracer Geji, very classic dive coming out. Cedro has a mean Winston. Kratos is going to have to be careful of this hero. See if they could take him out of the fight early. Looks like the double shield composition just taking up point on the back of the objective. Kratos trying to hunker down. See if they can get a little bit of positional advantage. Force out a move from the other side. Force a mistake from Malibu. Buck trying to dive in. They get the immortality field out early. It's a good early start. ODD comes in with the micro missiles, able to finish off the McCree. And now Kratos, what looked to be a very defensible position, suddenly looking like a tomb.
Yep. Ooh, sorry. No, it's definitely looking like it still holds true, right? The dive goes in, and all they want is to force out the immortality field. They do it. They get Harui's immortality field out, and then they just pounce on them. Wannabe is already behind the McCree, gets default out of the game, and it just snowballs on from there. Dive can do their good old job of snowballing, kill after kill, reset after reset on that Genji. And they'll have the ultimates to boot as well. So they're going to be, again, looking very pretty to hold on for at least 1 or 2 fights.
Yeah, especially with Cedro's Primal Rage. Can buy a lot of time, get a lot of percentage built up. Bach winning the ninja battle to open things up. What a strong kill. Maxwell almost to that blade, halting that progress and halting the assault coming out from Kratos.
That almost 6 online. I'm especially going to be interested in which ultimates they choose to combine in order to stave off these defenses. Because the Primal and the Blade could be a good combination to poop them out of the immortality field.
Damn, Matrix out from Kratos with the blades there. They have no room to work. Buck cutting Kratos down to size. Primal Rage invested in the mix. Tracer threw the Pulse Bomb in as well. So everything in the kitchen sink coming out from Malibu, but they do hold on to the fight, 70% and counting on the board.
And I think they did indeed throw that Primal Rage in to dislodge Buck, no, to dislodge the backline, especially in the front line maybe as well, to not let that immortality field have the value it wants. So Buck and Wannabe can just loop around everybody, being healed by Archer at the Coalescence, just clean up the kills with their ultimates.
Maxwell with the blade, but Fishcake with the sound barrier. Can they whittle through? Or will the Lucio keep the team alive, keep Malibu in this fight, as it's one last chance here for Kratos? It's going to be the sound barrier used early. Maxwell does pull his blade out. Self-destruct comes in. That finds the equipment. He values the supercharger from Kratos. Now Kratos investing that gravitic flux. Oh, and the health bars of Malibu looking oh so low. Both tanks go down. Buck able to get himself healed up with the Coalescence being thrown in, but without their tanks, it's going to be a tall order here from Malibu to take this fight back. But Archer up to the challenge, finds a pair of kills, including the Brig on the other side. Buck's able to take down Halui, and it looks like Malibu just might have held on to this thing.
Archer's Coalescences have been so great so far. I've gotten both healing and damage value out of all of them, and it does mean that Malibu, as a result, does take this point away, meaning that we're going to the map 3, which is going to be City Center. And looking at how these 2 points have been progressing, where Malibu chose to go more on the hard dive, the full mobility, and Kratos is still holding on to this double barrier strat, now going with the Torbjorn as DPS, or probably the Symmetra to get out of spawn quicker. Not sure what they're going to do yet, but it will be, once again, that same matchup that we just saw on Gardens. And I think if we progress through the points right now, you go from University, which is sort of an indoor brawl, then Gardens, which has that hybrid element of some indoor areas, and then the huge open point, and then City Center is just ring around the rosy for days, where dive really starts thriving. So I'm worried here for Kratos.
Maxwell is indeed going to swap to the Torbjorn to come in with a little bit of anti-dive. We're going to have the teleport and Fishcake on that Lucio, allowing Malibu to get this high ground position, a little bit of advantage in that regard, and now Malibu collapsing onto the bulk of Kratos. Buck taken out to the turret. Try to get that annoyance out of the way. And now the Immortality Field gone as well. This is going to be go time for Malibu. They're going to push in. They're going to find 1 kill, 2 kills. One of you does fall, but still a man advantage here from Malibu in the fight. Oh, Default answering right back. Finds a pair, but Gunther goes down. So Cratos missing their supports in this fight. Just 2 tanks and that McCree. But it looks like it might be enough. The 3 of them are going to push in and deny the pickup here from Malibu.
No, but Kratos doesn't dare to actually extend forward to get these last picks and really pick up that area control. So by the time they finally move forward, the 6 is back from Malibu and the fight just starts all over again.
We're going to get the Coalescence to start things off from Malibu, but in response, Amplification Matrix from Cratos. So far, neither team able to find much value on the back of it. Both teams standing in the corner. Okay, Diva caught a little bit of that position, and Cratos pounces on it, gets DMAX. Gunther takes out Buck as well. Follows it up a nice kill onto the pilot, now with a 2-man lead. Cratos able to just storm forward and clean up the rest of these kills.
Finally, they will win that fight, but you can see how quickly these ultimates keep charging for the dive team. They got so much poke value, so much value out of all their cooldowns, and they're going to have 3 more ultimates coming up now, the Sound Barrier and the Tank ultimates. On the other side, they'll have 4 Tank ultimates and the DPS ultimates, but especially that Sound Barrier can negate so much of what they want to do here on the defense of Kratos.
But Cratos to get both of those DPS ults out. And we'll see, especially this high ground, the high noon could be deadly. We're going to get the Immortality Field out early once again. Malibu didn't do such a great job of getting this equipment out. But they have to deal with the aggression coming in from Cratos, not to mention the Gravitic Flux, as that's going to slam down Siege Row. He gets deleted immediately thereafter. The Coalescence up, not enough to keep him in the fight. Want to be answering right back, though. Counterpunching back. Fish Cake even getting the mix. Fish Cake with a pair of kills on the Lucio, allowing Malibu to flip this point.
Malibu flipping it nicely over there. Obviously, like you said, again, very good job of forcing out that Immortality Field. They keep investing usually 1 ultimate to force it out, and then anything else to follow it up to get the follow-up when the Immortality Field isn't there. Now they'll have their DPS ultimates online. The nice ult cycle has definitely been keeping going here for Malibu, and they'll be able to use those to great effect if they once again force out the Immortality Field.
And Cratos used so much in that last fight. They're going to have Rally here, but it's going to be up to some mid-fight heroics to take this away, especially with the Blade on the other side. Buck looking to go in, into the air. Here comes the Katana. And he goes in, slicing and dicing his team there to help finish off the kills. Gunther dropped the Rally in the mix, but it was not enough to stave off the massive aggression from this dive team.
I wonder if that would have been a bit of a bigger Blade had he not gotten stuck on that wall on the side there, but not gonna knock Buck down from that one. They still got that team kill, and the Blade was a big part of that. Now we're still in a very lean vanilla situation here. Only Archie will have the Coalescence, Maxwell and Rocket getting close to their ultimates, but generally speaking, the ult cycle has just been better for this dive team. They're able to get more damage out, they're able to poke more and get so much more value out of these picks that they just cycle through their ultimates quicker and more efficiently.
Probably going over to the Diva, try to add a little bit more mobility to this team. As Cratos circled around through Coast side, but now they're caught in a tiny corridor. Coalescence out, burning through them. Immortality Field forced out. Molten Core coming out from Cratos as well. There's the Ant Matrix as they try to find the kills, but Malibu, they're just too elusive. They're not going to sit there in front of that extra damage. The Supercharger's now gone. Here comes the Sound Barrier from Malibu as they look to counterpunch back. Despite missing their Winston, missing their Tracer, Buck is going to go ahead and pull out the Blade, see if he can counterpunch, and he does. He finds 3, he finds 4 with the Genji Blade. Oh, and Malibu in such a strong position. I think they're going to take this map here, Classic.
Oh, it turns out the only thing that can prevent Buck from carrying your team is a wall, because nothing else seems to be able to do it. Buck just slicing and dicing away, gets them that map win with that beautiful 4K Blade in the end. And Malibu looking strong on that dive so far. And we can question whether that will be able to carry through in the next maps, but so far it seems that the double barrier is just not able to sustain out of it. We came from the Goats meta, and Goats meta, you could not really play dive against it, not only because of hero balance, but also you had that concept going on where you stand on the objective and the dive has to somehow get you off, and that eventually leads up into a less efficient composition than what Goats was. And I think that with this new style of dive, as well as the hero changes and how double barrier has been evolving, that dive has a much more capable solution to something like that, where you can actually say, okay, but we can actually cycle through our ultimates a lot quicker now because the Genji does much more damage. We have the Brigitte not being that much of a thorn in our sides. The Moira charges it quick. The Lucio can help with the boops. It's only really the immortality field that you have to worry about, and sometimes the gravitic flux. So Dive has so many avenues to really do something now that if you get the right maps, and even if you get the wrong maps, Dive can get value purely out of the way that they just play the game now.
Yeah, Krabi making the swap over to the Diva there for Kratos there in that last match. I wasn't quite sure about that. Just making the one swap, I mean, a little extra mobility, but it certainly wasn't enough to overcome that deficit.
No. And sometimes you think the Diva can actually do a lot by helping to peel with the Tracer, maybe eat the Pulse Bomb here and there, peel some other damage from the enemy Diva, from the Moira Orbs. So there was a lot of value maybe coming from that Diva. But you still got to question whether that's the pick that you actually want to go for, indeed, and if that's the
Yeah.
only swap you want to make. Now, looking at Kratos, I'm not too worried that they don't have a solution. I mean, they're on the top of the group together with Malibu for a reason, but it does feel right now that Kratos is the team that has to find the solution rather than Malibu, who've been on top of the game so far.
Yeah, and I wonder, if like you mentioned if they had made more swaps, and we've seen Kratos swap to a dive of their own in the past. They did it against Sky
Yeah.
Foxes just yesterday, I believe, and it was very successful. So I can't help but wonder if that was a missed opportunity on their part. Malibu taking full advantage and their coordination looking very clean here today, which is going to be the key to making that work and the key to them taking the rest of this series.
Yeah, and it is of course the case that a lot of the time we see control go one way, and then a team is like, okay, but that was control. We're not that great in control. That's not really our map type. We just completely swap over to something else on another map. That's our choice, or we have prepared something special for that that isn't what you just beat, or that we can beat what you just ran with. And going into the next game, I am next map, I'm 100% expecting Kratos to have something else prepared than just
Yes,
run
sir.
that same double barrier. But even if they run it, when it's not control, there's much more control that you actually have over your game pace, over your area where you're holding, the places where you're fighting. It's much more of an actual defense offense game that is on control, where it's just sort of a free for all the time. That chaos is going on. So I do definitely think that Malibu did great on the dive, but that when you go to other map types like escort, hybrid, and assault to a degree, that defensive power that a double barrier can have can work on both the offensive and the defensive side a lot better than it does in that chaosy free for all type, map type that control can be.
Absolutely, absolutely, and then you get default, most likely picking up the Ash here as we head into Route 66. They have a lot more room to work when you're just on an attack
Yeah.
defensive type position. You get in a more organized structure, and the flank angles start really opening things up. Can really make a big difference. Give Maxwell room to work there for Kratos. So we'll see as we head into map two. Of course, that opening map's so important. This is only a first to two. So
Yeah.
that's Malibu's already halfway there, taking Oasis. And
And it's good that you point that out as well with the Tracer going after default a lot of time, because default at some point we're actually in their POV on Oasis Gardens. Don't know if you caught that, where default was literally just keep looking right, keep looking right. Is the Tracer coming for me? Is the Tracer coming for me? Because it
right.
happened in the very first fight. And if you don't have to worry about that much, or if you still have to worry about it, but you're so far away from the rest of the fight and the team that you are essentially deleting one player from the fight until they get you, or even if they get you, that matchup becomes so different, and the Tracer has to do so much more work to actually get to you, that it's also very likely that the Tracer just will not be played in that situation. You'd rather have Wannabe go over to something like an Ash, just go for the Ash Mirror, for a Widowmaker. Maybe even we see
Yeah.
an Echo come out, so we have the Genji Echo, which has been talked
Ooh.
about at times. Um,
I would love to
but
see
yeah,
an
going
Echo
to Route
Classic.
66 here. Oh yeah, Echo. Honestly, we have not seen enough of it of late. But going into Route 66 here, um, yeah, I mean, we've been saying it. It's up to Kratos to really bring back their game and show that they can beat Malibu on that dive. But if Malibu is not running the dive, which on Route 66 is fairly plausible, then Kratos might have another surprise come in, and maybe they're not even ready for that either.
Well, Kratos going on the defense here to start things off on Route 66, showing us that double barrier, the very meta with the Ash and the Genji. Nothing surprising here. I'm very anxious to see where default sets up. They love those flank angles.
They really do, but I do think that if you play on Route 66, it's hard to say
It'd be very tough.
where you can really flank. You
Yeah.
usually want to hold that high ground, right? Because you get the off angles of the Ashe. The Sigma's usually with you in that case. You might go around like the side high grounds with a tunnel. You see them immediately do that, especially Krawi setting up fairly aggressively. But this is not a double barrier on the other side. It will be again Cedro odd on that Reinhardt Diva and Buck and Wannabe on the Genji Reaper. That worked out fairly well in University for them. Didn't quite get them the win, but it got close.
But University has so much less ground to cover. We'll see if they're able to overcome that ground. See if they can close the gap on Cratos without taking too much damage, without losing members along the way. Buck is going to find default right out of the gate. Wannabe teleporting up to the top. Cedro with a nice fire strike. And Wannabe just putting so much hurt down onto the front line of Cratos here. And that is a very swift point A. Well, at least first win on point A. Good first fight.
Yeah, and I like how Wannabe can capitalize on the moves that Buck is making in order to get on top of that high ground and not immediately get shield bashed and shot down by the Brigitte and the Orisa and Rocket and Gunter. So Wannabe is still on this Reaper, of course. We'll now have to be able to have a much closer angle and the defense actually having to push into them rather than the other way around. That's always what Reaper wants.
We're getting both blades out. It's a sword fight here on the point. Maxwell fights 2, Buck fights 1, but Cedro on the Reinhardt comes through, swinging for the fences with that massive hammer, and that propels Malibu to get 1 point on the board, get these gates open.
Yeah, Malibu just wants to say here, you know what? You thought it may have been a fluke on Oasis where we just ran that dive. You couldn't deal with it. Well, we can play some other things. As long as we have Buck on the Genji, it doesn't really matter what we do. And Fishcake and Archer have consistently just been on this support duo. Fishcake, a very aggressive, very flanky Lucio that usually doesn't get punished for that. Then Archer providing so much healing, some extra damage here and there. The orbs are good, the coalescences work. It's just such a nice backline that it's almost surprising you don't see more teams running it.
Fishcake doing a nice job of Boop and Rocket off the top. But Louis able to answer back, finds opening pick here on point B. Maxwell swapping over to the Echo, able to take Buck down, and some nice shooting from default picks off Wannabe. It's going to be Malibu heading right back to spawn.
Default's starting to warm up here on this Ashe. We hyped it up before the game, and it's definitely coming to fruition so far. Has the Bop ready. Quite a few ultimates on the defense in general. Only the Amplification Matrix and the Echoes Maxwell's duplicate will be missing because they only just swapped. But it will be Fishcake with the sound barrier on the other side that will probably be able to provide enough healing to deal with a few of these.
Coalescence available as well as that sound barrier. Want to be making the swap off of the Reaper, going over to the McCree here for the second point on Route 66. And Malibu doing a long rotation all the way around, throwing self-destruct over the top to help close that distance against the double barrier. Supercharger coming out from Cratos to try to stave off the assault, and Maxwell finds the first pick. Now Buck diving in, responds, takes down default. 5v5 on the point. Gunther's going to go ahead and throw down the rally, try to enable Cratos to muscle through the rest of this fight. Gravitic Flux coming out, but that's going to get the sound barrier. Fishcake right on top of it, keeping his team alive through the fight, but Wannabe not so lucky. He can't survive. Gunther follows up the good kill onto Buck. Buck not able to use that Genji blade in this fight, and another reset coming through from the attacking team.
I think actually Buck thought they still had a dash left, or they got didn't get a certain dash reset that they were hoping for, so couldn't quite dash away from the Brigitte. The hit whip shot hits him in the back, and they fall. But there will be an ultimate advantage here for the attackers. DPS ultimates. Once again, that Buck blade. We're going to look for it. Is the immortality loop going to come out too early, or will Buck still get the value?
Oh, Wannabe with a nice early pick. Crowley finds one as well. Buck trying to answer back. Finds two. In fact, a very important two in both healers. But Cratos seemingly able to close out this fight quickly as they're missing their sustain. Oh, Cedro trying to make a liar out of me. Archer takes down Maxwell. And it's going to be Malibu pushing forward here. Those two early picks proving so valuable.
Nice fire strike, right-click combo from Archer and Cedro there, and they won't be able to touch this. This is going to be the second checkpoint. 3 minutes 20 going to third there. And that blade from Buck, We didn't quite see it happen on stream. We saw them die to default. But the way that happens, it almost feels like Buck gets more value out of just the right-click melee dash combos than they do out of the blade, because they can be followed up quicker in succession. You can do more of those combos and get the one-shots quicker now with that new shuriken damage and spread than you can actually do with the blade. The blade is just nice for the quick dash resets to get around the team and do a higher amount of burst damage for the target finish, but not quite for getting the double slashes off.
Well, we've got both. We got Gravitic Flux and both DPS ults online here for Cratos. Come back in. Interested to see the duplicate card target. I'm expecting the Reinhardt. One of these going to go and throw down the High Noon. The Deadeye finds one, but Buck goes down. Both teams missing a character here. Crawley, their healer was that Sigma. Maxwell picked the duplicate, immediately got taken out of it, and now the self-destruct in response. Malibu trying to push through the left-hand side, throws down the Earthshatter. Earthshatter finds two, immediately gets the follow-up kills. Malibu just absolutely pouring through point C like a tsunami, washing it clean.
An early kill on the Crawley makes such a difference. Cannot use their Gravitic Flux, cannot provide shielding or accretions, or even Kinetic Grasp, which is often overlooked and gives the Overshield extra sustain. Now we'll see the barrier come out here. Beautifully done, beautiful start, but it's a bit early, and now this Gravitic Flux gets a lot of value.
As does the Supercharger default. Landon shots true with the Viper, finding a pair before Wannabe eventually takes them down, but Rocket able to clean up the mess. Cratos able to plant their feet.
Yeah, finally that those ultimates come out that they've been holding on to that they couldn't use in the fight before because they just got bopped. And now we'll see Buck still with the Genji Blade, Wannabe sweeping back over to the Reaper, of course a much more enclosed area, so the McCree or Ashe doesn't necessarily get as much value anymore, and Wannabe has been very good at capitalizing on the chaos to get in.
Kratos setting up on the high ground now, throwing that Ant Matrix early, trying to put that early damage in. They kind of keep somebody down touching the point though, and that can be very dangerous for Rocket. Here comes Buck's Genji Blade. Immortality Field there to keep default in the mix. Coalescence out of the other side. Oh, it is. Wannabe's focus on this point is just too good. Coalescence just following the Reinhardt around. So much damage coming out from the front and back line. Oh, man, it is just way too much for Kratos to handle. And that's 3 points on the board with a 53-second time back.
The lower the numbers get, the better a Reaper will do, and you can definitely see how Wannabe gets that value. They force the fight to happen on two different places by jumping on the cart, which needs to be defended, and then sending Buck up to the high ground into the back line. So Malibu has full control over which part of the team they focus on. The support utility gets used in the back line for the blade, and then Wannabe is just free to roam around and eat some tank flesh, because dang, that lifesteal just keeping Wannabe alive, helping out on the cart, which, yeah, they just cleaned it up nicely. It was a nice attack. Just
so much sustain. Yeah. There was just so much sustain, too much for Kratos to try to chop through. So now Malibu going on the defense, hoping that push will be enough to claim the series here today and keep their undefeated streak through the NA Contenders trials. In that vein, they're sticking with that same composition here, Classy. This one kind of surprises me. On the defense, I expected the double shield.
I would have at least expected maybe not the Reaper. I think if you have a team running into you on a map where you can just hold the high ground and spam down on them, you could just say, well, we'll just run the Ashe or something like that, maybe the Tracer. But with the way they're holding this close into their spawn, it doesn't actually matter, because they have to come to Wannabe instead of Wannabe going to them, and then the Reaper gets all of a sudden a whole lot of value.
Oh, and immediately Buck getting value. Gets a deflect kill with the coach gun. There's something you don't see every day, and that's just going to keep Kratos in the spawn here for another 10 seconds.
Kratos now going to find out a way to get out of spawn with some mobility, some utility. There's Max already on the Echo, gets that nice cloak beam combo on that Buck, and a huge boop from Fishcake on the side. Oh no!
Into the abyss go Crawley and Gunther, and it's just a one-man lead for the defense here, though. That opening pick from Maxwell could be enough to at least get him out of the gate. That run back so long, falls into the good D-Mech onto ODD, and slowly but surely Kratos making their way out of spawn. Cedro with that Earthshatter online could halt this thing. Oh, but Gunther right there to take him down. The Briggs sending their mentor to join the rest of Malibu back in spawn.
And meanwhile, Max will still do work on the Echo, just split the fight up into two, just like Malibu did on the last point. Now Maxwell just flew around the outside, barely died a few times, and then just manages to clean up some extra kills with that focus beam. This Maxwell being the solo hero going out there, making sure that their team is not being looked at by 6, but only by 3 or 4 at a time at most.
Such a smart swap. What a big brain play coming from the DPS player. And I'm looking at the composition from the defense, and I don't know if Malibu has anything to counter Maxwell in this guy, who is going to have that duplicate on shortly. Bob online, and Malibu wasting no time. They're getting a very quick fight in here. Sound barrier thrown out to try to give themselves the advantage. They're going to get the opening pick on the default. Buck in the back trying to take down the Baptiste, and that's going to force out that immortality field. That's exactly what he wanted. He's got the blade in his pocket. He does not get the wall climb. Oh no, the boop off the side. Buck falls into the depths, holding that Genji blade. And now Cratos free to push forward. They do get hit by an Earth Shatter, but I don't know that the follow-up is there. No, not even the charge is enough to find a kill here from Elephant.
Yeah, so they're investing a few ultimates to try and defend a bit longer. They will most likely get another touch. I think the distance is not going to be far enough, and they'll have their DPS ultimates as well as that self-destruct to once again try and force out that immortality field. If Harui is able to hold on to that for long enough, they could potentially counter something that Bug or 1v want to do. They need to do that.
Supercharger out from Cratos. And yeah, here comes Buck in with that blade. We'll see if that counter exists. So far, no real damage done. Buck trying to shoot through the biggest health pool on the field. And Marisa able to fortify Cedro there to help take Rocket down. But Troy and Max will answer right back. Too much focus from Malibu. The tension was taken away from the rest of Cratos, who are happy to clean up the kills.
Now with a minute remaining, they will get that first checkpoint, 3.5 to go, and I mean, so far they're at a decent pace, not quite as quick as we saw come out from Malibu, but still a decent potential to make a good time here. And they'll still have ultimates left. I think that's the nice part, right? You see the duplicate come out, they'll have the Bob, they'll have the Gravitic Flux, and Fishcake doesn't quite have the sound barrier yet, but will likely be matching that one with the Gravitic Flux, which is usually being saved at this point.
Cry moving up to the high ground with the Echo, trying to build up towards the rest of that ultimate. Bob comes out. Default does go down, but 3 picks here for Cratos. Duplicate used onto the Reinhardt and just going in a swinging. Maxwell finding great value with that duplicate, though it might have been a little late in the fight.
Might have been a little bit late, but Default gets so much value with the Bob together with that they're happy just investing 2 ultimates to win that fight. Because if you invest 2 ultimates and you win a fight, that's usually a good situation. No matter how many ultimates the other team uses, you're usually going to come out in a fairly okay position. They will be down in ultimates somewhat, and that's exactly what we're going to be seeing coming out here. The counter to those ultimates, because they just have more numbers here on the side of Malibu, especially with those 2 kills, Bullscan.
Oh, Malibu, this aggression is just so impressive, so fun to watch. This Blitzkrieg defense, they throw the speed amp in, they throw the sound barrier down, and just plow through Cratos. I don't think Cratos knew what hit him.
And that's something we haven't really discussed before, right? Where Fishcake comes out on the Lucio in every single fight. We said that duo is very nice in Fishcake and Archer, but Fishcake can play a very aggressive Lucio because their team also wants to play aggressively, so they taxi everybody in and then go for the extra boops to set more plays up. Again, they're above this hole. They're trying to boop people off this high ground soon.
And again, Cratos running into a small corridor with a Coalescence, burning them down. Maxwell can't even make it out of the cave, or Wannabe picks him off. Wannabe does have that Deadeye online, self-destruct ready to go. And Cratos struggling here on point B. You can see they're just tentatively trying to push out, and then the moment they do, there's a self-destruct right over the top. Troy goes down, and this assault is just fizzling out here before it ever began.
Yeah, they had 3.5 minutes going to be. Now it's only a minute left, and at this point, it's starting to become a bit desperate. If you're Cratos here, you really, really need to win this next fight to give yourself some breathing room for third. And if you don't, even if you get the third, there's so much pressure because this is the game that decides whether or not you will remain undefeated in this group.
45 seconds for Malibu to hold where they take the sole lead at the top of the leaderboard here in Trials. Buck opens up with 2 great picks to start it off. The brink is gone. Both DPS are gone. Oh man, this is just a Buck show. My goodness, what a star performance. here. I don't believe it. The Bulgarian just absolutely doing so much work, finding so much value. What an impressive Genji player.
Yeah, Buck showing up so big this series, but it is being set up by their team quite a bit. They're consistently being able to split off these solo members and then just say, Buck, go get him. We'll take care of the rest. And it's consistently happening. Buck just picks up the Brigitte, then goes after the next one, and the rest of the team just follows up and cleans it up.
One last try for Cratos. They're running into a Coalescence. Maxwell able to find first kill and a duplicate into the McCree. They got taken out of it. And then Buck with another blade. Buck has these things on cooldown, taking out the DPS. Fishcake, the aggressive Lucio, showing up in the feed one last time. There goes the overtime wick. Malibu with a very decisive 2-0 victory and has still yet to drop a map here in a Contenders Trials.
Yeah, we were really expecting this to be a series where the maps kind of went back and forth a little bit at least, but with this sheer dominance of Malibu right now, I don't think that they'll ever even drop a map at this point anymore. So Malibu looking to basically be guaranteed contenders at this point. I mean,
all
mathematically,
but.
there's still yeah, exactly. Mathematically, there's still possibilities, but when you look at this performance and the teams they still have to face and how the games have been playing out over the past 2 and 3 days, it just doesn't seem possible that Malibu will not make it there. Like barring any scandal of the team getting disqualified, I think they're looking very peachy for this one.
Oh yeah, after a second place finish in the Fran Overwatch Community Cup, coming in, making their stamp on the tier 2 scene in a big way. The entirety of the community needs to take notice of Malibu right now and Buck on this Genji. What an outstanding showing. I'm truly impressed with what I've seen here today, man class.
Yeah, it's I heard something for production, but I'm not quite
I,
sure what
I
actually happened
believe
there.
our other match going on is going to a map 4, if I understood
Okay, well,
correctly.
tune over quickly, otherwise you'll miss it. Yeah, no, that's of course, the other two matches going at the same time, so that tends to happen sometimes. I think they have. I'm actually not even sure anymore who they're playing.
It's
Uh,
That match is going to be Karasuno going up against Revival here, two
ooh,
star-studded teams. So I don't know if we're going to take you to that or you need to go check that one out, but that sounds like an absolute
don't miss
thriller
it.
going
Yeah.
on. Yeah, I can't wait to go back and watch this VOD. Oh
I
my
was gonna
goodness.
say we just go wrap this one up quickly, so you
Let's
guys
go
have
wrap this
actually
one
no
up.
excuse to really leave because I mean this was a good series still. It wasn't as close as we maybe had expected, but with the performance that came out from Malibu, I cannot blame Kratos for going down like that. They definitely tried. They showed a few beautiful plays. Maxwell is definitely a DPS to watch out for. Rocket and Krawi did great on the tank line. I think Harui did the best they could holding on to the immortality fields, and Gunter a very nice Brigitte, got quite a few counters on the Genji play of Buck, and even on the Reaper play of Wannabe at times. So nothing to scoff at Kratos
Not at
roster,
all.
but Malibu just looked into a league of their own today.
Well, we're going to go ahead and wrap it up. Thank you so much for hanging out with us. Thank you for supporting Tier 2. This has been Bullskunk and Mana Class, bringing you the action. Y'all remember to look out for each other in game and out. Let's go check out this other game.